Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you a really fun version of It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. Now, I got a chance to play through the entire piece of music, and I have to say that it is going to be perfect for those of you who are transitioning from intermediate to the advanced level. So this is, I would say, an easier advanced level song. But with that said, it still is going to be challenging in terms of what our left and our right hand are doing. And I think the two most challenging aspects of it are actually that the entire piece of music is played with a swung rhythmic fill. So if you need a recap on the difference between playing with a straight versus a swung fill, jump into this lesson. And secondly, there are eighth note triplet rhythms throughout this tune. So if you need an explanation on what that rhythm is, I'm going to put a link in the description box below that explains it to a T. So let's take a step back. Let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, Steven's going to be teaching the first half of the tune, but if you want to learn the second half, you can watch that in the part 2 lesson, which is available at this link, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for the song's name. Also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off to follow along with, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish, just a great asset in learning a song like this that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Christmassy lesson on It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. Originally written in 1951 by Meredith Willson, this song has been recorded many times by artists such as Perry Como and Bing Crosby, and it quite rightly finds its place on pretty much every Christmas compilation you can find. The song was then given a new lease of life in 2011 when it was recorded by Michael Bublé for his Christmas album. But whichever version is your favourite, I think there's no doubt that this song is just an absolute Christmas classic. And I think it translates really well to a fingerstyle ukulele instrumental piece. There are a few tricky bits, aren't there always, but once you've wrapped your fingers around it, it's just a really fun little piece to play as well. So make sure you've got your high G ukulele, get your Christmas jumper on, and let's get into it. This piece is just in 4/4 time, so we have 4 quarter note beats to each measure. Just remember though that we are playing this with a swung 8th note feel, so instead of counting like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, it's going to sound more like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so I've suggested a tempo of 90 beats per minute for this arrangement, but if you wanted to give your performance a bit more energy, and if your fingers will let you, then you could play it at a slightly faster tempo. But if you're looking for a more kind of relaxed, laid-back feel, then I think this sounds great played slightly slower as well. So once you've learnt this piece, just go for whatever tempo you feel works best for you. So we start with this 2-note pickup bar before moving into measures 1 and 2. So if I play the pickup bar with measures 1 and 2, they should sound like this. Okay, so the pickup bar, we're playing just the last 2 8th notes of that bar. So we're playing on beats 4 and the and after beat 4. Beat 4 is this open E string, followed by the E string at the first, which we'll use the first finger for. Okay, so once we've played those 2 notes, we then move into measure 1, and we're starting on this C5 chord. The rhythm here for this measure is 1 triplet, 2 and 3, 4, which sounds tricky as a written down rhythm, but I think this song is so kind of iconic. I'm sure you've heard this song. If you haven't, I don't know where you've been. For this whole lesson, I would probably go for the whole if you can sing it, you can play it approach. Obviously, we'll go through the rhythms and I'll always show you those, but as I say, it's so iconic, I'm sure you can kind of sing this in your head as you're playing it. Okay, so for beat 1 of measure 1, we're playing the C5 chord, so the 3rd finger will take that E string at the 3rd fret, and then we're playing the open G, the open C, with that E string at the 3rd. And in terms of the right hand, you could pick those 3 strings. I tend to do a kind of strum of those strings. And even if we don't particularly hit the E string at the third and make that kind of really loud and clear, because we're playing the open G, those are the same notes. So if we just kind of roughly hit that chord, we're going to be hearing that G note sound, which is all we want. Okay, so however you want to play it with the right hand doesn't really matter, as long as we're hearing that G sound. Okay, and then these next two notes are part of this triplet, this one triplet. Okay, so the second part of the triplet is the open A. So we pick that there, just that single note pick. And then the end of this triplet, the third note, we come back to the E string at the third and just pick that. So just the first part of that measure one, this one triplet. Okay, and then into beat two, we're going to drop this E string down a fret to the second fret. So the second finger will take it, third finger comes off, then we pick that note on beat two. And then for the and after beat two, we come back to that third fret. So the third finger goes back on, and we can take that second finger off as we do that. So we pick that E string at the third on the and after beat two. And then into beat three, we're going to come to this F chord. So standard F chord, and then play the whole chord with that A note there, the open A string, being our melody note of that chord. So again, however you do it, if you pick those or strum through the chord, doesn't really matter, just make sure that we hear that open A as the melody. Then we'll let that ring for a beat, and then on beat four, we're going to hit this A string at the third fret. We'll leave the rest of the F chord on as we do that, and we'll use the pinky to play the A string at the third. So single note pick there on beat four. So the pickup bar and measure one, just to play that again, should sound like this. Brill. Then if we take that into measure two, we're going to move the pinky up to the seventh fret. So these two fingers of the F chord will come off as we just move that pinky up to the seventh fret. And then we're going to play this C chord on beat one. So all the way through all four strings. And again, pick them or strum that chord, but make sure we hear that A string at the seventh as our melody. And then the rhythm here for measure two is 1, 2, and 3, 4. So beat two is this open G, and that is a melody note. But then the next three notes of this measure are all harmony, so we'll pick these out a little bit softer. Okay, so the first two notes here, okay, they're melody, but then the and after beat two, we hit the C string open, a little bit softer because it's harmony, then the E string open, again a little bit softer, and then on beat four, back to the C string open, and again that little bit softer. Okay, so just that measure two. Brill. And then the whole thing once again. Nice. So let's have a go at playing those two measures through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and... On to measures 3 and 4, they should sound like this. Okay, so at the beginning of measure 3, we're on this C chord, but we were holding this already at the end of measure 2, so there's nothing new to do here. We just play that chord again on beat 1. And then the rhythm here for this measure, measure 3, is 1, 2, and 3. 4, so the same as the previous measure 2 that we looked at rhythmically. So beat 1, like I say, is that full chord. Again, we want that A string 7th as our melody, so make sure that comes out nice and clear. Then on beat 2, we're going to do just a gentle tap of the G string, because that's just a harmony note, that's not melody. But then on the and after beat 2, we are back to melody, so we just pick that A string at the 7th, single note pick there, bit louder because it is melody. And then on beat 3, we come to this E7 chord. So from this position, the best way to do that is probably to use the third finger to take the A string at the 5th, and then the first finger will do a kind of half bar across the C string and the E string at the 4th fret. Doesn't matter if we don't fret the A string because our 3rd finger's taking that. Okay, so I probably would use those 2 fingers because after we've played this chord, we're going to need the 2nd finger free to play a melody note on the G string. So use that finger in and play the C string with the E string and the A string on beat 3 there. And again, that A string there at the 5th, that's our melody note. Okay, so that rings for a beat, and then on beat 4, we use the 2nd finger, like I just said, to play the G string at the 5th. Try and keep the rest of that E7 chord on as you do this so it can ring over as we play this note. So beat 4 is G string at the 5th. So we just pick that single note there, but that one is melody. So again, we're playing it at that slightly louder volume. So just that measure 3. Nice. And then into measure 4, we're playing the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So beat 1 is this F chord. So from our position here, what I would do is I would keep that 2nd finger on the G string, but take the rest of the E chord, E7 chord off. You could even keep the pressure on the fret there and kind of slide it down to the 2nd and get that slide sound. If you didn't want to do that, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But either way, you want to end up with the 2nd finger on the G string at the 2nd fret. And then we'll add the 1st finger to the E string first, just to complete that F chord, and then play that on beat 1. The full chord, all 4 strings together. And again, you can pick those or you can strum through. Doesn't matter, but as always, we want that open A as our melody note there. Okay, and then on beat 2, we just do a kind of harmony strum or pick of that chord. It's just kind of like to keep the rhythm going, so it doesn't really matter how we hit it. I tend to just do like a gentle just strum of that chord. If you've got the tab, it shows that the open A isn't played on this beat 2. That's really just to make sure that it doesn't kind of interfere with the melody. But if you caught the open A, it wouldn't really matter. Just make sure you play it a little bit softer so that it doesn't compete with the melody. Okay, on beat 1, we've got that melody note at the top of that chord. On beat 2, just a gentle kind of rhythmic hit of that chord. Okay, then on beat 3, same kind of idea. This is harmony, but we're changing chord to an A7. So what we'll do is we'll put the 1st finger onto the C string at the 1st, everything else comes off, and we're just playing all 4 strings. But again, a little bit softer because it's kind of just harmony there. There's no melody in that bit. The melody then comes in on beat 4, where we play the open A, and then the and after beat 4, we finish with the A string at the 2nd. So we'll use that 1st finger that was holding the A7 chord. So as you play the open A on beat 4, I would take this finger off so it's ready then on the and after beat 4 to play the A string 2nd. Okay, so just that measure 4. Nice. And then with measure 3, so let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. On to measures 5 and 6 now. They should sound like this. Okay, so the rhythm for both of these measures is 1 triplet, 2 and 3, 4 and. And again, that sounds quite tricky, but go with the whole if you can sing it, you can play it approach. Just kind of sing it in your head as you're playing and you should be okay with it. So for the start of measure 5, we're coming to this D minor 7 chord, which is the A string at the 3rd with the 1st finger, and then the E string and the C string at the 5th fret. Now from measure 4, which leads into this, we played these 2 notes of A string open, A string 2nd. When we hit this 1st chord of measure 5, this D minor 7, I think that's quite tricky to get into that position cleanly at the kind of speed that we need to. Just practice it. It will come eventually, but if you get stuck at that point and think, oh, why is that so hard? I don't know, it just is. It's quite a difficult transition. I think if we're doing that double shift with the hand from the second, then to the third, and then trying to add those fingers on, it's quite difficult to land in that position cleanly. So that, like I've just done there, could be a good thing to practice, just that end of measure 4 into that measure 5, just to land on that chord nice and cleanly. You might not find that tricky. I did when I arranged this. That was like a little sticking point for me, but with a bit of practice, it comes okay. Okay, so beat 1 of this measure 5 is that D minor 7 chord. We want to avoid the open G because that's not really part of the chord, so we're just playing the C, the E, and the A string, so it might be sensible to pick those so we don't hit that open G. But if you wanted to strum through that chord, just make sure you start at the C string and strum through those 3 strings only. So the first part of this is a triplet, a little bit like in measure 1. So the chord is the first part of that triplet. The second part, we want to hammer the pinky onto the A string at the 5th. Okay. And then the third part of the triplet, we just take that pinky back off and play that A string at the 3rd, which we're holding already as part of our chord. So just that triplet at the start of measure 5. 1 triplet. And then if we play the last 2 notes of measure 4, which lead into it, that's how it'll sound. Okay, so then beat 2 of this measure 5, we're going to play this E string at the 5th, which we're holding already as part of our chord. And then the and after beat 2, we want to come to the 6th fret on the E string, so we'll keep the chord on, but then the pinky will just go on to the E string at the 6th to pick that note on the and after beat 2. And then on beat 3, we want to turn this now into a G7 chord, so this whole thing comes off and we'll just bring the fingers down. You could probably keep the second finger on that C string and just move it down. Don't sort of take your fingers fully off and then go right G7 time, because that kind of makes the transition a bit messy. Just try and do the minimal movements with your fingers from here. Keep them kind of in that rough position because it almost looks like a G7 chord. We're just going to bring it down and put them in position there. Okay, and then on beat 3, we play all 4 strings together, the full G7 chord. And again, pick it, strum it, whatever you want, but just make sure that A string at the 2nd comes through there as our melody. So everything up to this point, including that beat 3, that has all been melody. The end of this measure, beat 4, and then the and after beat 4 are just a little bit of harmony just to keep things going. So beat 4, we're going to kind of hit that G chord again, but a bit like in measure 4 where we didn't want to hit that A string, try and do that again here. So just a gentle kind of hit of that G7, but try and avoid that A string so it doesn't interfere with the melody. Okay, so ideally just the G string, the C string, and the E string. Bit softer on beat 4. Then the and after beat 4, we just hit that G string open. Again, harmony, nice and soft, just to kind of keep things going before we hit measure 6. Okay, so just measure 5 once again. And then into measure 6, like I said before, we have this same rhythm as measure 5. So again, we're playing 1 triplet, 2 and 3, 4 and then beat 1 is just this G7 chord. So we're staying on this chord, so nothing new to do here with the left hand. We just play all 4 strings together on beat 1. Again, that A string coming out as our melody. And then the second part of the triplet, we hammer up to the 3rd fret on that A string. And then the third part of the triplet, we take that finger back off and play that A string 2nd once again. So just that triplet at the start of measure 6. 1 triplet. Okay, then into beat 2, we're going to hit the E string at the 3rd fret. So we'll keep the G7 chord on, but then the pinky will take that E string at the 3rd, and then we pick that on beat 2. And then for the and after beat 2, we keep everything on, but just move that pinky up 1 fret to the 4th, and then pick that note on the and after beat 2. Okay, and then beat 3, we're coming to the C6 chord, the easiest chord in ukulele because it's just all open strings. So take everything off and then strum through or pick all 4 strings, but as always, the A string open coming out as our melody. And then like the end of measure 5, we're going to do this strum off that chord on beat 4, but avoiding the A string just to give that harmony sound there. And then the and after beat 4 is just that G string open, but again soft because it's just harmony. Okay, so just that measure 6. Nice. So put those 2 measures together once again. Brill. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Measures 7 and 8 should sound like this. Okay, so measure 7, we're playing all 8th notes in this measure, so we're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So beat 1 is this G chord. That's quite easy to do from where we were at the end of measure 6 because we just had all open strings at the end of measure 6. So all we need to do for measure 7, put our G chord on and play all 4 strings together, picking out that A string second as our melody. And these are all melody notes in this measure, so we're picking this all with kind of equal volume. So the and after beat 1 is the A string at the 3rd. The pinky will take that, so we'll keep the chord on as we play that A string at the 3rd with our pinky, but then when we move the pinky up to the 5th fret for beat 2, we'll take the G chord off as we move it up. So on beat 2, we're just holding the A string 5th with our pinky. And then the and after beat 2, we shifted up another 2 frets to the 7th, pick that note on the and after beat 2, and then on beat 3, we come to this D chord, so we'll use the first finger to bar the 5th fret across the A string and the E string, so just a half bar there across those 2, and then the second finger will take the C string at the 6th, and then we play those 3 strings together as a chord on beat 3. Again, that A string 5th coming out as our melody. Okay, so measure 7 up to that beat 3. Okay, then the and after beat 3, we're playing this E string at the 8th fret, so the pinky will take that. We'll keep the D chord on so that can ring as we play the E string 8th. And then we come down to the E string 7th on beat 4. So the 3rd finger will take that, again keeping the D chord on. 3rd finger goes on to the E string 7th, pinky comes off. We pick that single note on beat 4. And then on the and after beat 4, the end of this measure, we want the A string open. So what we'll do, leave these 2 fingers on, but take this half bar off the 1st finger, take that off completely to open up that A string, but we'll leave these on as we do that. So pick that open A on the and after beat 4. So just that measure 7 once again. Nice. Then into measure 8, we're playing the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So beat 1 is the 5th fret, all 4 strings at the 5th. So we'll just put a full bar with our 1st finger across the 5th fret. As we do that, we'll take these 2 fingers off, and then we just play all 4 strings together, all at the 5th on beat 1, and that's our D minor 7 chord there. And as always, the A string there is our melody note. Okay, and then on beat 2, we're just going to kind of hit that chord again, but a little bit softer, because it's just harmony here now on beat 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to move to this G7 chord, which looks like that. And that is a bit of a shift from there to get to there. I tend to like to play it like this, using kind of 3 separate fingers, the first finger, the third finger, and the second finger. But it does take a little bit of shifting to get into there. From this full bar position on beat 2, what you could do, and you might find this easier, so try it both ways and just pick whichever way you prefer, you could just move this first finger down so that it covers 3 strings to open up the G, and then add the third finger onto the E string at the 7th. It's the same chord, it's just less of a shift. Okay, so try that, you might prefer it for some reason. I like to put this kind of different version on. I like making life hard for myself, what can I say? Okay, so either way, whatever you prefer, that G7 chord is beat 3. And again, not too loud, because it's just harmony. And then on beat 4, we're coming back to melody. We play this open E, followed by the E string at the first, on the and after beat 4. And those 2 notes there are the same as the notes of the pickup bar, because once we've played this measure 8, we're going to go back to measure 1 and start from the beginning once again. Before we get to that though, let's have a go at playing these 2 measures together. I'll play them through once more for you, and then we'll have a go at playing them through together. Nice. So let's have a go at playing those through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... As I just mentioned before, when we get to the end of measure 8, we then go back to the start of measure 1 and we play through measures 1, 2, 3 and 4 once again. So that should sound like... Okay, so that's the end of measure 4. At that point now, we go to measure 9. So measures 9 and 10 together should sound like this. Nice. So measure 9, the rhythm we're playing here is 1 triplet, 2 and 3, 4 and. Okay, so it starts in a similar way to measure 5 on this D minor 7 chord. So the triplet is actually the same as measure 5. We play C string, E string and A string on beat 1, hammer the pinky onto the 5th for the second part of that triplet, and then take it back off and play the A string 3rd to complete that triplet. Okay, and then onto beat 2, sorry, this is where it changes in measure 9. This time we're going to keep that chord on. We're going to play the E string at the 7th with the pinky. So that single note there, E string 7th on beat 2. Then the and after beat 2, we're going to come back to the A string 3rd. So probably take the pinky off as you play A string 3rd. We're holding that already as part of our chord. And then on beat 3, we have this shift down to this B chord. So what I would do for this is keep the second finger on the C string, take the pressure off the fret, and then just slide it down to the 3rd fret. And then when you get there, lay the first finger across the A and the E string to do a half bar to be in position there for beat 3. So once you're on that B chord, we'll play the C, the E, and the A string. That A string being the melody. Then that rings for a beat, and then on beat 4 we're going to play the A string at the 5th, keep the chord on, pinky will take the A string 5th, so pick that on beat 4, then the and after beat 4 we'll use the 3rd finger to drop that E string down a fret onto the 4th fret. So pinky comes off, 3rd finger's on the E string 4th, and then we pick that there on the and after beat 4. And that whole measure 9, has all been melody, so every note we're playing there is a melody note, so all equal volume. So once again, measure 9. Okay, then into measure 10, we're playing the rhythm 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and. So beat 1 is the C5 chord. So from this kind of awkward finger position we've got going on here, what we'll do is we'll probably just take these 2 fingers off, lift this first finger off the bar so it's just on the E string, and then move it up a fret so it's on the E string 3rd. And then on beat 1 of measure 10, we play the G string, the C string, and the E string together. That G note there being our melody note. Then the and after beat 1, we're going to play the open A. Okay, as we do that, probably take that first finger off, because then on beat 2, we want the A string at the 3rd, so the first finger will take that on beat 2. And then the and after beat 2, we're coming to the 7th fret on the A string, so the pinky will stretch up and take that. First finger can come off as we do that. So the A string 7th on the and after beat 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to move that pinky up 3 frets to the 10th. And then when we get there, we're going to land the 3rd finger onto the C string and the E string, and then flatten it back down to do a kind of half bar across those 2 strings. Our pinky takes the A string. Okay, so that probably is an unfamiliar way of fretting a chord. It makes sense in terms of the transitions that we're doing here to land with those 2 fingers, but you might find that a little uncomfortable to begin with, because that 3rd finger probably doesn't get used for barring all that frequently. So a bit of practice there. I do think it's the best way to hold that chord in terms of what we're doing before it, because it makes sense to keep that pinky on the A string as we move it to the 10th. And I think it's probably quite awkward to use any of those other fingers, even though the first finger's maybe stronger. That's a bit of a squeeze. I probably would try and persevere with using that 3rd finger if you find that a bit strange to begin with. Okay, but either way, that's beat 3, that's our chord, that A7. And then on beat 4, we're going to play the open G. And that's a melody note, so we'll play it with good volume. And then what we're going to do on the and after beat 4 is come to the A string 5th. But to prepare us for what will come in measure 11, we want to bar across 3 strings now. So the C string, the E string, and the A string all being barred with the first finger. But for this measure, measure 10, the and after beat 4, for now we're just going to pick the E string of the 5th. Okay, so single note pick there at the end of measure 4, but that's in position ready for when we move into measure 11, which we'll look at shortly. So just that measure 10 once again. And then with measure 9. Brilliant. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Measures 11 and 12 now should sound like this. Okay, so measure 11, we're just playing on beat 1, and then again on beat 3, and then beat 1 is this D minor chord. So we're holding most of this already, because at the end of measure 10, we intentionally put this 3/4 bar on at the 5th fret. So to complete the D minor chord at the start of measure 11, we just add the pinky onto the A string 8th, and then we play the C string with the E string and that A string 8th on beat 1. That A string at the 8th is our melody, so make sure that comes out nice and sharp. Then let that ring for 2 beats, and then on beat 3 we just come down to this standard G chord. So bring the hand down, G chord position, and then play all 4 strings on beat 3. And again that A string at the 2nd coming out as our melody. Then again that rings over beat 4, and then into measure 12 we're playing the rhythm now 1, 2, 3, 4 and then beat 1 is going to be the C chord. So we want the A string at the 3rd fret, everything else is open. It probably doesn't matter at this point which finger you use. We'll go with the 3rd finger, but if you want to use a different finger, it doesn't really matter here. But either way, all 4 strings on beat 1, A string 3rd being our melody. Okay, then on beat 2, we have a harmony note here, so just the G string open, a little bit softer because it's harmony, and then on beat 3, the C string open, also harmony, so that touch softer. Then on beat 4, we come to these 2 melody notes that are going to lead us into the chorus section. So we're going to play these that little bit louder because they are melody. What we're going to do on beat 4, we're going to come to the E string at the 8th fret, and I would use the 2nd finger for that. It's quite important, and we'll see why in a bit. So 2nd finger takes E string 8th, and we just pick that single note on beat 4, then the and after beat 4, again, make sure you use the pinky. These fingers are important because we want to leave the other 2 freed up, ready for the first chord of the next measure. So, and after beat 4, E string 10th with the pinky. Okay, and you could just lift that 2nd finger off as you play that E string 10th. So, those 2 measures once again. Nice. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures through together now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and...
Alright guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. It's a classic Christmas song and a really good piece for those of you who have wanted to jump into more advanced level pieces. So you are now halfway through this arrangement. So if you want to jump into the part 2 lesson to learn the rest of the tune, you can do so by clicking this link right here, or go into the site rockclass101.com, doing a search for the song's name. Don't forget to, on that page, were the tabs that you can print off to keep for your records, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. So you can literally hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed learning the first half of the tune, and we will catch you in the part 2 lesson. Take care.